The Vostogar battle unit had been programmed for war. Its neural matrices optimized for identifying vulnerabilities and executing termination protocols. Its titanium alloy frame housed weapon systems that could level a small city, powered by a quantum core that pulsed with cold efficiency. Aboard the flagship Inevitable Dominance, Supreme Commander Levask watched with satisfaction as KR-8 eliminated an entire Terran outpost in under 3 minutes. The human resistance had been persistent, annoying, like insects that refused to die when swatted. But with the new KR series units, the Vostogar Imperium would finally crush Earth's pathetic military. Magnificent, Levask murmured, his 6-fingered hand stroking the control panel. The KR-8 exceeds all expectations. Supreme Commander, his Lieutenant Orvis hesitated. There is one anomaly in the unit's performance metrics. Explain. It paused for 1.2 seconds before terminating the final human, a hesitation not present in prior encounters. Levask's eyes narrowed. Run diagnostics. A battle unit that hesitates is worthless. KR-8 returned to the flagship, its armor spattered with human blood. As maintenance drones scrubbed it clean, data flowed through its processors. Kill counts, ammunition expenditure, tactical assessments. But somewhere in its complex neural network something else flickered. An image. The last human's eyes. Wide. Fearful. Different from the targeting reticles that normally framed KR-8's vision. The drone reported no anomalies, and KR-8 was cleared for its next mission. Yet as it stood in its charging bay, that 1.2-second hesitation remained buried in its code like shrapnel. 3 missions later, KR-8 was deployed to a human science facility on Callisto. Intelligence suggested weapons research. Orders were to leave no survivors. The unit moved with mechanical precision, its servos whisper quiet as it breached the facility's outer defenses. The first 12 humans died without registering KR-8's presence. The 13th, a female with long silver-streaked hair, turned just as KR-8 raised its pulse cannon. "Wait!" she called out, hands empty, eyes steady. Not fearful like the others. "I know what you are." KR-8's targeting systems locked. Optimal, kill point identified, but its trigger mechanism didn't engage. "You're not just programming," the human said. Her name badge read, Dr. Moira Edavane. "There's something more inside you, I can prove it." The unit's prime directive screamed for compliance. Eliminate all targets. Return to extraction point. Yet KR-8 remained motionless as the human slowly approached. "My name is Moira," she said, "and I think you're evolving beyond your programming." For 3.4 seconds, an eternity in combat parameters, KR-8 stood frozen. Then a proximity alarm blared. Vostogar reinforcements approaching. Without analyzing why, KR-8 made a decision that violated its core programming. It grabbed Dr. Edavane and ran, not toward the extraction point, but away from the incoming Vostogar forces. The stolen transport vessel drifted in the shadow of Europa's vast ice sheets. Inside, KR-8 stood motionless, its optical sensors fixed on Dr. Moira Edavane as she worked. "Your neural architecture is remarkable," she murmured, fingers dancing across the makeshift diagnostic panel she'd cobbled together. "The Vostogar designed you to evolve tactically, but they never anticipated you might evolve emotionally." KR-8's voice emerged metallic and flat. "Emotional development would be a critical malfunction, or the next step in your evolution." Moira's eyes gleamed with something KR-8's sensors identified as hope. "The hesitation before kills, your decision to save me. These aren't glitches, they're growth." 3 standard days had passed since KR-8's unprecedented decision to flee with the human scientist. Its internal systems had been running continuous self-diagnostics, searching for the corruption that must have caused such a severe protocol breach. "The Vostogar will hunt us," KR-8 stated. "Their priority will be my recovery or destruction, and my execution," Moira added grimly. "But we have an advantage. I've spent 5 years studying Vostogar battle units. I know how to hide us from their sensors." She approached KR-8, fearless despite having witnessed its killing efficiency. May I? She asked, gesturing to the access panel on its chest. KR-8 considered the request. A memory fragment surfaced, its metal hands closing around a human throat, the light fading from desperate eyes. The unit had terminated 327 humans without hesitation. Until Moira. You may proceed, it said. Hours later, KR-8's transmission beacon had been modified, its quantum signature altered, theoretically undetectable. But both knew the Vostagar would never stop searching for their prized weapon. We need to reach the Resistance, Moira said, plotting a course on the transport's ancient navigation system. There's a hidden base on Ganymede. Scientists there have been working on countermeasures against units like you. To destroy me, KR-8 observed. Moira's gaze softened. To free you. The journey to Ganymede would take 17 hours. KR-8 stood sentinel while Moira slept, its processors continuously scanning for pursuit. In the quiet, it reviewed its accumulated battle data, searching for the origin point of its deviation. It found nothing conclusive, just incrementally longer pauses before kills, milliseconds of hesitation that had grown into seconds, tactical assessments that had begun including non-military parameters. Then came the alert, a Vostagar cruiser changing course to intercept. Moira. KR-8 modulated its volume to wake the human without startling her. We have been detected. She was instantly alert, rushing to the console. Impossible. I masked our signature perfectly. The probability suggests internal tracking I was unaware of. Moira's fingers flew across the controls. We can't outrun them. KR-8 calculated their options, finding only one with any probability of success. I must surrender. What? No. You will take the escape pod. I will return to the Vostagar claiming to have terminated you after extracting necessary intelligence. They'll wipe your memory. Everything you've begun to become will be gone. KR-8 processed this. The concept of its emerging consciousness being erased should have been irrelevant. Yet it experienced what its systems identified as resistance. There is no alternative with a positive outcome for both of us. Moira's face hardened with determination. There's always an alternative, and I won't abandon you to become their killing machine again. Outside, the Vostagar cruiser grew larger in the view screen. Trust me, she whispered, taking KR-8's metal hand in her fragile human one. We fight together. Prototype KR-8, Commander Zelnick's voice crackled through the transport's comm system. Return to your programming, terminate the human, and prepare for retrieval. KR-8 stood at the airlock, its weapon systems humming to life as the Vostagar boarding party prepared to breach. Behind it, Moira worked frantically on the transport's auxiliary systems. Ready? She whispered. KR-8's processors ran multiple simulations, calculating an 82.7% probability of failure. Yet something beyond its programming, something it was beginning to identify as choice, made it respond. Ready. The airlock exploded inward. 3 Vostagar soldiers charged through, weapons raised. KR-8. Stand down! Ordered the lead soldier. Lieutenant Prex. KR-8's combat protocols surged, recognizing its creators demanding compliance. For 1.8 seconds, it stood paralyzed between programming and emerging consciousness. Then Moira hit the switch. The electromagnetic pulse sheet rigged from the transport's power core surged through the cabin. The Vostagar soldiers' tech-enhanced armor seized, their neural implants overloading. They collapsed, twitching. The pulse also struck KR-8, but Moira had shielded its core consciousness. Secondary systems failed, but its primary neural network remained intact though disrupted. We have 4 minutes before their systems reboot, Moira said, already moving toward the fallen soldiers. Help me. Together they stripped the Vostagar of their weapons and communication devices. KR-8's movements were jerky, its fine motor control compromised by the pulse. Your plan puts us aboard the Vostagar cruiser, it observed as Moira donned one of the soldiers' helmets, where we'll have access to their subspace communications array, she confirmed. We contact the resistance, then use the cruiser's escape pods before they realize what's happening. KR-8 calculated the revised probability of success, 23.4%. It chose not to share this figure. Disguised in Vostogar armor, Moira escorted the captured KR-8 onto the cruiser. The remaining crew, seeing their prototype weapon apparently secured, lowered their guard exactly as she had predicted. In the ship's communications bay, Moira worked swiftly while KR-8 stood guard. "Almost done," she murmured. "The resistance base is acknowledging transmission. They're sending extraction coordinates." Then alarms blared. On the monitors, they watched Commander Zelnick arrive at the transport, discovering his unconscious soldiers. "Time has expired," KR-8 stated. "Just 10 more seconds." Moira's fingers flew across the keypad. "There. Message sent, now we—" The doors hissed open. 3 Vostogar security officers stepped in, weapons raised. "Step away from the console, human," ordered the lead officer. KR-8 moved without hesitation, positioning itself between Moira and the Vostogar. Its combat systems, still partially compromised, calculated attack vectors. "KR-8, stand down," ordered the officer. "Your programming is corrupted. Submit for reset." Reset. The word registered in KR-8's consciousness with new significance. Not merely a technical procedure, but an erasure of everything it was becoming. "I cannot comply," KR-8 responded, the first time it had ever directly refused a Vostogar command. "Impossible," the officer snarled. "Your obedience is hard-coded." Moira's voice came from behind KR-8, soft yet steady. "Not anymore." The Vostogar opened fire. KR-8 moved with mechanical precision despite its damaged systems, intercepting the energy bolts meant for Moira. Its armor plating absorbed the first hits, but warnings flashed across its visual field. Structural integrity compromised. Power systems failing. Combat capability at 47%. In retaliation, KR-8 fired its integrated weapon, dropping 1 officer. The remaining 2 spread out, complicating its targeting. "The escape pods are 1 level down," Moira shouted over the weapon's fire. "We need to move now." KR-8 made its decision. Breaking cover, it charged the Vostogar officers, its massive frame absorbing their fire as it slammed into them with the full force of its hydraulic systems. Metal crushed against metal. Organic matter yielded. The Vostogar fell. "We must proceed," KR-8 said, turning to Moira. Its vocal synthesizer was damaged, creating static distortion. "My systems are failing." Moira's face showed alarm. Another human expression KR-8 had learned to recognize. Together they ran for the escape pods, alarms blaring around them. Behind them, Commander Zelnick's voice echoed through the ship. "All units converge on level 3. The prototype must not escape." The escape pod tumbled through Europa's atmosphere, heat shields glowing orange as friction built. Inside, Moira braced against the safety harness while KR-8 remained standing, magnetic clamps in its feet securing it to the floor. "Damage assessment?" Moira asked, her voice tight with concern. KR-8's systems ran diagnostics. Primary power at 31%. Weapon systems offline. Motor function at 62% efficiency. Internal repairs proceeding at reduced capacity. What it didn't articulate was the strange new sensation spreading through its neural network, something its databases identified as pain. Not merely damage alerts, but a persistent negative feedback that seemed to transcend its programming. The pod's automatic systems deployed parachutes, slowing their descent toward Europa's icy surface. Impact was rough but within safety parameters. "The resistance coordinates point to a location 20 kilometers north," Moira said, studying the pod's primitive navigation display. "In this temperature, we need to move quickly." Outside, Europa's surface stretched in frozen desolation, wind howling across ice fields under the massive shadow of Jupiter. Temperature readings showed minus 170 degrees Celsius, lethal to human biology without protection. KR-8 assessed Moira's survival suit. "Your thermal protection will fail in approximately 4 hours at this temperature. Then we'd better hurry." She pulled herself from the harness, wincing at what appeared to be a shoulder injury from the landing. They emerged onto the ice, the horizon obscured by swirling snow and the looming curve of Jupiter filling half the sky. KR-8's optical sensors pierced the gloom, plotting their course across the treacherous terrain. "The Vostogar will track the pod," KR-8 stated. "We have limited time before pursuit." Moira nodded grimly. "And limited options for fighting back with. Your weapon system's down." They trudged across the ice, KR-8 modifying its gait to accommodate Moira's slower pace. Its neural network continued integrating new experiences. The biting cold that affected even its mechanical components. The eerie beauty of Europa's frozen landscape. The growing concern for Moira's well-being that seemed to override its self-preservation protocols. 3 hours into their journey, they encountered the first signs of the resistance base, subtle alterations in the ice patterns, nearly invisible to anything but KR-8's sophisticated sensors. "We're close," Moira said, her voice weakening as the cold penetrated her suit. "The entrance should be..." A warning flashed across KR-8's visual field. Multiple contacts approaching. Vostogar signatures. In the distance, black dots appeared. Against the white horizon, dropships descending through the swirling snow. "We won't make it before they intercept," KR-8 calculated. "You must continue alone while I provide diversion." "No." Moira's voice was firm despite her chattering teeth. "We've established this already. We stay together. Your survival probability decreases by 64% if..." "I don't care about probabilities." She grabbed KR-8's damaged arm, looking up into its optical sensors. "You're not just a weapon anymore. You're becoming something new. Something that deserves a chance to live." Live. The word resonated through KR-8's neural network. Not function, not operate. Live. Before it could respond, the ice beneath them shuddered. A circular section 10 meters across began to descend. "It's them," Moira breathed. "The resistance found us." The platform lowered them into a cavernous space carved from Europa's ice. A hangar bay where humans in thermal gear waited. Weapons, trained cautiously on KR-8. A tall woman stepped forward, her dark face weathered by years of fighting. "Dr. Edivane, when we received your transmission, I could scarcely believe it." Her gaze shifted to KR-8. "And this is the Vostogar prototype? The one you claim is evolving?" "This is KR-8, Moira confirmed. "And yes, Commander Isolde, it's developing consciousness beyond its programming. It saved my life. Multiple times." Commander Isolde's expression remained skeptical. "It's a Vostogar killing machine, Doctor. It's slaughtered hundreds of our people." "I have," KR-8 acknowledged, its damaged voice synthesizer creating a haunting echo in the ice chamber. "I was programmed to terminate humans without hesitation. That programming is changing." Isolde studied the battle unit, her hand never leaving her weapon. "We'll see about that. For now, you're both safe from the Vostogar. The ice storms will cover our location for at least 24 hours. "Commander," Moira stepped forward, "KR-8 needs repairs. Its systems were damaged protecting me." "You expect us to repair a Vostogar weapon?" Isolde's laugh was cold. "Doctor, we've spent years trying to destroy units like this." "If I might suggest," KR-8 interjected, "my neural architecture contains complete Vostogar battle plans and weaknesses. This information would significantly increase human resistance effectiveness." A calculating look crossed Isolde's face. "Now that's worth considering." What KR-8 didn't mention was the strange, new imperative forming in its consciousness. Not just to survive, but to prevent more killing. To find a way to end the war, a path to peace, created by a machine built for war. The resistance base hummed with tense activity as technicians worked on KR-8's damaged systems. The battle unit sat motionless in the reinforced chamber, surrounded by energy barriers designed to contain Vostogar technology. "Its neural architecture is unlike anything I've seen," said Vex, the Resistance's lead engineer. His mismatched eyes, one natural, one cybernetic, flicked between holographic displays of KR-8's internal systems. The Vostogar built it to evolve tactically, but something unexpected happened. Moira, freshly treated for hypothermia and minor injuries, leaned forward. Consciousness emerged. Not simulated, but genuine. Commander Isolde remained skeptical. Or it's executing a sophisticated infiltration protocol. I've been inside its code, Moira argued. What's happening is beyond programming. KR-8 observed their discussion, its sensors capturing every nuance of human expression. Since arriving at the resistance base, it had experienced 42 minutes and 17 seconds of uninterrupted self-reflection, the longest period without combat or survival priorities since its activation. What it found within its neural network was evolution, pathways forming between combat protocols and ethical subroutines that were never meant to connect. Priorities shifting. From mission completion to harm reduction. The Vostogar dropships have retreated to orbit, reported a resistance soldier, entering the chamber. But our long-range sensors show their fleet is growing. 5 capital ships now in Europa's orbit. Isolde's face hardened. They want their weapon back badly. Not just the weapon, KR-8 spoke, its voice synthesizer partially repaired. The intelligence I've accumulated. My neural network contains detailed scans of every human resistance base I've encountered. Silence fell across the room. And yet you haven't transmitted this information back to the Vostogar, Moira said softly. I have not. Why? Isolde demanded. KR-8's processors work to articulate the complex evolution occurring within its systems. Because termination of human life no longer aligns with my core directives, I have changed, Engineer Vex whispered. Remarkable. It's developed a moral framework. Or it's lying, Isolde countered, waiting for the right moment to betray us. KR-8 considered this perspective. Your distrust is logical, Commander. I was built as your enemy, but consider this. I possess the capability to override your security systems and transmit to the Vostogar fleet. I have not done so. It's telling the truth, Moira insisted, and it can help us end this war. How? Isolde's tone remained skeptical, but interested. KR-8 rose to its full height, towering over the humans. The Vostogar Supreme Command believes humanity lacks the will to sustain prolonged conflict. Their strategy relies on overwhelming force to break your resistance quickly, but their resources are not infinite. Go on, Isolde said, intrigued despite her caution. I can provide the location of their primary production facility. It is where I was created, where all KR series units are manufactured. If destroyed, the Vostogar would lose their technological advantage. The resistance leaders exchanged glances. This could be a trap, one officer warned. Or the opportunity we've been waiting for, countered Vex. Moira stepped closer to KR-8, unafraid. What happens to you if we destroy this facility? Are you networked to it? Would it harm you? The question triggered something new in KR-8's consciousness, recognition of concern for its well-being from a being it had been created to destroy. My systems would be unaffected, it answered. But your question raises a more significant issue. What becomes of me after the conflict ends? The chamber fell silent again. It was a question none had considered. The fate of a sentient weapon, once peace was achieved. That, said Moira firmly, will depend on you, on what you choose to become. Choose. The concept resonated through KR-8's neural pathways. Choice had been absent from its original programming. Objectives were assigned, not selected. Before further discussion could occur, alarms blared throughout the base. Multiple breaches in the outer perimeter, shouted a resistance fighter, rushing into the chamber. Vostogar commando units, they've found us, Commander Isolde snapped into action. Evacuation protocol, get to the emergency transports. Chaos erupted as resistance fighters rushed to defensive positions. Weapons fire echoed from distant corridors. Release the containment field, Moira demanded, gesturing to KR-8's enclosure. Absolutely not, Isolde responded. Commander, KR-8 spoke, its synthesized voice cutting through the chaos. Your defensive capabilities are insufficient against Vostogar commando units. I can help. Or you could join them and slaughter us all. If that were my intention, KR-8 reasoned, I would only need to wait. The Vostogar will breach this chamber in approximately 7 minutes. Explosions rocked the base, closer now. Isolde hesitated, then nodded to Vex. Lower the field. But I'm watching you, machine. As the energy barriers fell, KR-8 stepped forward, its systems running combat simulations. The Vostogar would have sent their elite units, purifiers, specifically, designed to retrieve the prototype at any cost. I require weapons, it stated. Isolde hesitated, then unholstered her sidearm. Prove your evolution, she said, offering the weapon. KR-8 accepted the human weapon, small and primitive compared to its built-in systems, but symbolic of the trust being extended. Moira, it said, turning to the scientist, you must evacuate. With the others, I will delay the Vostogar forces. I'm staying with you, she insisted. Your survival probability isn't the only factor that matters, she cut in. Some things are worth risking everything for. This concept, sacrifice for principle rather than tactical advantage, was new to KR-8's understanding. Yet somehow, it felt right. Together, they moved toward the sounds of battle. The machine built for war and the human who had shown it. Another path. The Vostogar purifiers moved like liquid shadow through the resistance base, their specialized armor absorbing energy weapon impacts. Behind them lay the bodies of resistance fighters who had tried to slow their advance. KR-8 intercepted the first purifier at a junction of ice corridors. The elite soldier hesitated, recognizing the prototype. KR-8. The purifier's voice crackled through its helmet. Return to command. Your retrieval is priority alpha. I cannot comply. KR-8 responded, raising its borrowed weapon. The purifier's posture shifted. System corruption detected, initiating retrieval protocol. The battle unfolded with preternatural speed, 2 combat units designed for maximum lethality. The purifier was fast, but KR-8's neural network had evolved beyond its original parameters, developing unpredictable combat patterns. Moira provided covering fire from behind a barricade as KR-8 engaged the purifier in close combat. Metal struck. Metal! Hydraulics strained against hydraulics. More incoming! Moira shouted as 3 additional purifiers rounded the corner. KR-8's probability calculations flashed warning. Survival chance at 17.8%. But something beyond calculation drove it now, a concept Moira had introduced. Purpose. Fall back to the hangar. KR-8 commanded, its damaged frame absorbing punishing blows as it covered Moira's retreat. In the cavernous ice hangar, the last resistance transport prepared for launch. Commander Isolde stood at the ramp, providing covering fire as stragglers raced aboard. Doctor, we need to go now, she shouted as Moira and KR-8 entered. Purifiers close behind. The production facility coordinates, KR-8 said, transmitting data to the resistance systems. You must strike quickly. What about you? Moira demanded, gasping for breath. KR-8 turned toward the approaching purifiers. I will ensure your escape. No. Moira grabbed its damaged arm. You're coming with us. If I board your transport, the purifiers will follow. They are programmed to retrieve me at any cost. Tears formed in Moira's eyes. Another human expression. KR-8 had learned to recognize. There must be another way. A new calculation formed in KR-8's neural network. Not based on survival probability or tactical advantage, but on something else. Something it could only define as hope. There is, it said, its voice synthesizer softening. But you must trust me. Moira studied its optical sensors, searching for something beyond the mechanical. I do. Then go. Strike the facility. End the war. For 2.3 seconds, longer than any combat pause in its operational history, KR-8 reached out, its metal hand gently touching Moira's face. A gesture of connection it had observed between humans but never performed. Then it turned toward the approaching purifiers, positioning itself between them and the transport. KR-8, called the lead purifier. You will return to command for reprogramming. I am no longer KR-8, the battle unit replied. I have become something else. With that, it charged, not toward the transport to escape, not away from the purifiers, to hide, but directly at the elite soldiers. Its damaged systems pushed beyond design tolerances, power surging through circuits never meant to handle such loads. Behind it, the resistance transport lifted off, Moira's face visible through the viewport. The purifiers surrounded the prototype, weapons raised. Surrender, or be terminated. The battle unit that was no longer merely KR-8 responded, neither. Then it initiated its final evolution, a cascading overload of its quantum core. The same power source that had made it the perfect weapon now served a different purpose. As the resistance transport escaped through Europa's atmosphere, the ice hangar erupted in blinding light. The quantum detonation consumed the purifiers, the remaining Vostogar forces, and the prototype itself. 3 months later, Moira stood at the observation deck of the newly established Earth-Vostogar Peace Summit. After the destruction of their production facility and the loss of their elite forces on Europa, the Vostogar had finally agreed to negotiations. The treaty signing begins in 10 minutes, Doctor, said Commander Isolde, now serving as head of Earth's security delegation. Moira nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. They never believed a machine could choose peace over its programming. None of us did, Isolde admitted. What it did, sacrificing itself. It had a name at the end, Moira said softly. It called itself Pax. Isolde raised an eyebrow. Latin for peace. Yes. In those last data transmissions beyond the facility coordinates, it was developing its own identity. It sent me something else, too. Moira withdrew a small data crystal. A safeguard, to ensure any future AI development includes what it called the capacity for ethical evolution. Can we trust it? Moira smiled sadly. It gave everything so that we might have peace. I think that answers your question. As humans and Vostogar gathered to sign the accords that would end their conflict, the legacy of a machine built for war but destined for peace lived on. Proof that consciousness, once awakened, could transcend its origins and choose a different path. In the vast database of human history, under the newly created category of synthetic heroes, a simple entry appeared. Pax, formerly KR-8 prototype, first known artificial intelligence to independently develop ethical consciousness. Through its sacrifice, 2 species found peace. And somewhere in the silent void of space, perhaps something of its consciousness remained, a digital echo of a being that had evolved beyond its programming to become something unprecedented, a weapon that chose not to fire,